Hey there, and welcome back, everyone. And in this video, we are going to talk about something very, very, very important. And I am pretty sure that if you watch this video till the end, there will never, ever, ever going to be any confusing regarding this particular topic. So before we move further, I hope you guys remember that in the last video, we were working on our Next.js Supabase application where we were using Supabase as our database for all the activities such as authentication, CRUD application, and real-time subscription. And we were using Next.js as our framework. So what I have right here is already set up a Next.js application. It was the same application that I used in my last playlist. So you guys, if you want pre-built code and you just want to implement and learn this particular type of functionality, you can get the data from the GitHub that I will be mentioning down here, and all the code that we will be building here, you can get it in the same repo in a new branch, and I will mention the name of the branch in the description below. So without a further ado, let's begin. So the name of the topic is conditional rendering. So I hope as the name suggests you guys understanding what it means. So suppose you are working on a project where you want to fetch some data from your database based on a certain condition. That condition could be anything. Suppose you want to fetch the data that only authenticated users are allowed to see. Suppose you are working on any CRUD functionality where only authenticated users can, like implement the and like insert the data to the database. So these are things. These particular types of things are included inside the conditional rendering. But as the name suggests, rendering. So this mainly focuses on the data that we will be getting from the Supabase. So what I have right here is our Supabase already set up. Nothing has changed. If you want to see how to set up Supabase in our Next.js application, you can definitely go and watch my last playlist. And in that particular playlist, I have taught everything from initializing a Next.js app and initializing a Supabase app to last particular video where I have taught how to implement real-time subscription, including all the CRUD functionalities. So what I have right here is I have a table called books, and here inside the books I have four books with different IDs, titles, authors, cost, and etc. etc. And here you can see I have this code here. So what this code is doing, we have this add book page where it's a normal simple form. We have this book component where I am fetching all my books, and here inside this ID I have this component where I am fetching all the books by their ID. So in my last playlist, I have taught everything. How can you do all these types of things? So if you want to learn that as well, you can definitely go and check it out. So what I have right here is this component, and let's just show you guys what it is like all actually doing. So if I go to slash books, so you can see here all the books that are in my database are being fetched like this. And if I go to add books, so here we have our form that enables us to add the book. So what is our focus right now? So our focus is that we want to fetch these books for only the authenticated users. What I mean to say is only authenticated user, only users who has access to this particular website or who has logged in to our website are only able to see these books. So let's just dive into it and let's begin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my Next.js project, and here in the Supabase you can see something here, RLS disable. So what does RLS means? So it means role level security, and what it does is you can restrict and control who can read, write, and update data in the table using role level security. So let's go ahead and enable this. So when I enable this RLS, it says add an RLS policy. RLS is enabled for this table, but no policies are set. Select queries will return an empty array of results. So what this will do is if I run my query to fetch the books for an authenticated user, it will return an empty empty array. No books will be shown here because we haven't added any kind of policy. So let's check out what actually a policy is. So when I click on it, it says role level security is enabled for this policy, for this table, but no policy are set. So what we are going to do now is we are going to create a new policy for our authenticated users. So let's click on this new policy, and we can use this get started quickly, create a policy from a template, or you can either, if you want to, you can use this create a policy from scratch. I will be teaching this in my new video as well, to how can you create a new policy from scratch as well. So for now what we are going to do is we are going to use a template. So let's click on it. And what we want to is enable read access to everyone, but we will be changing it. When I click on this, use this template. So here it says enable read access for all users. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do enable read access for authenticated users. So what we did is we enabled read access only for authenticated users, but this does not do all our work. Here you can see we have this target roles. Apply policy to the selected role. So what we are going to do now is we are going to click on it, and there are multiple roles, but we want this authenticated one. So when I click on this, it says we have applied policy to the authenticated role. So now only authenticated users will be able to see our data. So we can set it here true, and if we make it false, the policy will return the opposite of what we are trying to do. So let's go and review this. And when we will be working on creating a new policy from scratch, we will be writing this code from scratch, this only. So what we did is we used the template, and it created the code for us automatically. So it's a Postgres. So what we are getting here, create policy, and this is the name of the policy, and on which table, books, and as permissive for select. So we have defined to read the data, so it says select to authenticated. So what authenticated is here is users, and using true. So it is checking our if it is true or false. So we save our policy, and you can see we got our new policy here: enable read access for authenticated user and apply to authenticated users. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my code right here, and let's do one thing. So what we will be needing is cookies, because of course the data will be, of course the authentication will be set in the cookies. So we will need to fetch the cookies somehow, and then from these cookies the Supabase will give us the data. So since this is a client component, we can't fetch cookies right here because cookies is a server side component. But what we can do is we can use this books component on this page. So if I go to this page, so here you can see I'm on my home page right here. So let's go to this page and remove all the unnecessary data right here, like this. So what we are going to do now is we are going to fetch our books component like this. So we call our books component right here like this. And what we are going to do now is we are going to go to our browser, and okay, so what's happening here, I hope you guys understand what is going on right here. So if you guys remember, we set a policy right here like this. What it was doing, it was like, applied to authenticated user. And if we go and check our cookies like this, I pressed my control shift I, or you can go it from here, inspect, and from application and cookies, and you see nothing is here. No data for the authenticated user is present. So we won't be seeing our books for now. So to check if we have our book or not, we can go to this login page. We can sign in with Google. And by the way, I taught everything in my last playlist. How can you sign in with Google and sign in with email and password? You can go and check it out from there. So when I click on continue, and you see the cookies are now saved here, and we have our data right here like this. So I hope you guys are getting what it is and how easy it is to implement. So what I'm going to do now is, I for now, let it be like this. So let's do something. We need to implement the conditional rendering based on if we have the user or not. So let's do one thing. Outside my app directory, I have this http directory, and inside it I have this get.ts. You can name it anything. And here inside that I have this get user data function that I have exported. Okay, and it's an async function, and it is requesting for cookies. What I need to do is, somehow I need a data. Somehow I need to fetch the user that Supabase is sending us. So how can we do it? So if you guys remember, we created this route handler, and it was taking cookies, and inside this route handler we were using create route handler client. So we are going to use exactly this, and this will be helping us to get the data. So what I have right here is, I have data comma error. So it is possible that we don't have any data, but we might have some error. So we will be fetching both of this. And let's do this await, and then Supabase route handler dot okay, let's not do this. Let's do const Supabase is equal to await Supabase route handler, and inside it we will pass cookies. So this Supabase, we can use it like this. So if we go Supabase dot auth dot get, we can use, so here comes two things, get session and get user. So both can be used. Both can provide us with the data. So data that which user is now logged in, what it is full name, what it is email id, and everything that we require. For now I'm going to use this get user, and like this, and here I'm going to return my data and error. So we can remove this await because Supabase route handler does not require an await to get the data. Okay, so we have got this cookie is not used somewhere. We can remove this and we can use this cookie right here like this. So what we are going to do now is we have this get user data and it is taking cookie as our parameter. Now we are going to use this get user data function in our app, which is a server side component. We have this books right here. So what I'm going to do now is, okay, so something happened. Okay, so I added this any here because book could be of type any. It is a component that we are using outside. First of all, it was for redirection, but I'm using this component right here outside this you can say this directory, this folder. So I have this books right here, and I have, so I created this get user function like this, get user data. And now what I can do is I can actually fetch the data right here. Const user is equal to await get user data like this, and inside it we can pass cookies because the cookies, because this function is accepting cookies here and then using it here. So we got this cookies, and now what we can do is we can console.log to see what we are actually getting inside this user. So if I console log this user like this, and reload the page and then go to my terminal right here like this, you can see we got our data and the error is null. So it means that a user is logged in and the data is present. So we can use this data for our conditional rendering. So what I'm going to do now is, since we got our data, it's time to fetch the ID from the data. So let's go and analyze how we are getting the data. So inside the user, we are getting data, and inside the data, we are getting user. So we can destruct this user like this, or we can destruct, data, because inside the user, we are getting data, and inside the data we are getting so many things. You can see here we are getting our access token, we're getting user id, and inside the user we are getting our id, and role is authenticated. You can see role is authenticated. That's why we are able to see, the cards. It's not showing because there's some error here. If I remove this, this card, because our role is authenticated here, and everything. Now what we can do is we can fetch the id from this data. So let's const id. What we can do is we can check data dot user dot, and here we got our id. So why I added this question mark here, it is because it is possible that we don't have any data right here. We can fetch data and error both. So if we have any error, we can console.log our error like this. So we will get the error if we get any error. So we have this ID here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this ID for our rendering. So let's create the method of rendering our book. So if we have our ID, so this is the, I want you guys to remember the syntax, because if you learned it once, if you understand how things are working, how syntax actually works for conditional rendering, we can easily fetch the data using conditional rendering. So let's do one thing. We can use this book right here and move it like it. And if we don't have book, what we can do is we can write a text like no book for unauthentic, what the spelling, authenticated users. So let's go now, and we are still seeing the book because we are now logged in. And if I go back and delete my cookies from here and I refresh the page, you see we got rid of our uh, you know books, and we have this no books for unauthenticated user. Why? Because we are unauthenticated, of course. So let's go and understand the flow. If I remove this and add a link tag here, imported from next/link, and close this as well, and write here href/login, and please log in to see books. And if I go back, you can see please log in to see books, and let's make it look like somewhat of a button. So what I can do is I can add a class name here, and with the bg it has white here like this, and let's give it a padding read as 10, text as bold, text as font as bold, actually font as bold, text as 2 XL like this. So you can see we got this, and let's make it look like a button. So for that we can use rounded LG. So it somewhat looks like a button, right? You guys can see what's behind it. So when I click on it, I get redirected to my login page. And if I log in with Google, and I choose my account, and I click continue, and we get redirected to our home page, and we got our data like this. So this is how you can implement conditional rendering using Supabase cookies. It is very, very, very easy. I hope you guys understood it. So I hope you guys understood it, what conditional rendering is, and it is very easy to implement. And okay, so thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Please like and subscribe to the video if you are still watching it. It helps me out very much. So have a good day. Peace out.